The 42nd floor of Cyber Shield Technologies towers over downtown Chicago like a glass and steel monument to ambition. Victoria Hayes stands at the floor-to-ceiling windows of her corner office, watching the city wake beneath her. At 38, she commands a cybersecurity empire worth $2 billion, built from nothing but determination and an unwillingness to accept failure. Her morning routine never varies. 5 a.m. workout in her private gym. 6:30 shower in the executive bathroom. 7 o'clock sharp, she's at her desk reviewing overnight reports from offices in London and Tokyo. By 8, her assistant has arranged the first of 12 back-to-back meetings that will carry her through until well past sunset. Victoria's office reflects her personality perfectly. Sleek, modern, intimidating. Awards line one wall each, representing another company she's acquired, another competitor she's crushed. Her desk, a massive piece of polished black marble, sits positioned to ensure anyone who enters feels the weight of her success. Behind it, Victoria herself appears untouchable in her perfectly tailored designer suits, her dark hair pulled back in a style that screams control. She treats her employees like chess pieces, useful when they serve her purposes, expendable when they don't. This morning she watches through her glass walls as dozens of Cyber Shield workers hurry past her office, none daring to make eye contact. They fear her, and Victoria prefers it that way. Fear means respect. Fear means they'll work harder. The intercom buzzes. Ms. Hayes, the Pentagon representatives have confirmed tomorrow's security audit. They'll be here at 8 a.m. sharp. Victoria's jaw tightens. Tomorrow's audit will determine whether Cyber Shield wins the largest government contract in company history. $2 billion over 5 years with the Department of Defense. It's the deal that will cement her legacy, that will prove once and for all that Victoria Hayes belongs among the most powerful business leaders in America. She turns back to the window, studying her reflection in the glass. Successful, powerful, completely in control, and utterly alone. The penthouse apartment she goes home to each night echoes with silence. No family photos sit on her desk. No personal calls interrupt her day. She's built her empire on the foundation of needing no one, trusting no one, depending on nothing but her own ruthless intelligence. It's exactly the way she wants it. Or so she tells herself every morning when she wakes up in a bed big enough for 4 people, hearing nothing but the hum of air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic far below. Victoria pulls herself away from the window and returns to her desk. There's work to do. There's always work to do. And tomorrow's audit requires her complete attention. Everything she's built, everything she's sacrificed for, depends on proving to the Pentagon that Cyber Shield's security can't be broken. She has no idea that in less than 18 hours, a man she barely acknowledges will be the only thing standing between her and total ruin. A man whose name she doesn't even know, whose life she's never bothered to consider, whose quiet competence she's consistently ignored. Victoria Hayes has always believed that success comes from being harder, smarter, and more ruthless than everyone else. Tomorrow night, she's about to learn that sometimes the most important people in your life are the ones you never bothered to see. Nathan Brooks wakes every morning at 6:30 to the sound of his alarm, not because he has to, but because Sophie needs him to. His 8-year-old daughter has severe asthma, and consistency matters more than comfort when you're managing a chronic condition that can turn dangerous without warning. Their apartment sits above Murphy's hardware store on the south side of Chicago, in a neighborhood where people still know each other's names and look out for each other's kids. It's not much, 2 bedrooms and a kitchen barely big enough for a table, but Nathan has made it home. Sophie's drawings cover the refrigerator. Her inhaler sits in its designated spot on the counter, always within reach. Her school backpack hangs by the door, packed and ready every night. This morning, like every morning, Nathan starts the coffee and begins preparing Sophie's breakfast. Oatmeal with honey, the kind that's supposed to be good for respiratory health. Orange juice with added vitamins. Her morning medications lined up in the small plastic container he fills every Sunday night. Good morning, sunshine, Nathan calls softly toward Sophie's room. Time to get up. Sophie emerges a few minutes later, her light brown hair sticking up at odd angles, rubbing sleep from eyes that match her father's warm brown. She's small for her age, made smaller by the breathing treatments and medications that keep her healthy but steal some of her energy. Morning, Daddy. She yawns, climbing onto the kitchen chair he's placed a cushion on so she can reach the table properly. Do I have to do my breathing treatment today? Every day, sweetheart. You know that. Nathan sits across from her watching as she takes her morning pills without complaint. Sophie has been managing her condition since she was 4. She's tougher than most adults, Nathan knows. While Sophie eats, Nathan reviews her day. Mrs. Patterson is picking you up after school for your checkup with Dr. Martinez. Remember to tell him about how you felt during gym class yesterday. Sophie nods seriously. At 8 years old, she understands that her health isn't something to take lightly. She's been to the emergency room twice in the past year when her asthma got out of control. Both times Nathan had to leave work immediately, both times resulting in missed pay he couldn't afford. Nathan works 3 jobs to make ends meet. Days he does computer repair for small businesses around the neighborhood. Evenings he tutors high school kids in math and science. Nights he works the IT support shift at CyberShield Technologies, fixing network problems and resetting passwords, for a company that pays him just enough to keep Sophie's medical bills current. What none of his employers know, what Nathan has never told anyone, is that he used to be someone entirely different. 7 years ago, Nathan Brooks was considered one of the brightest minds in cybersecurity. He'd earned his doctorate from MIT at 25, published papers that changed how people thought about computer defense, and had job offers from every major tech company in the country. Then Sarah died, giving birth to Sophie, and Nathan's world restructured itself completely. He'd been offered a position with a classified government research facility. The salary would have been extraordinary, the work fascinating, the career trajectory unlimited. But the job required 80-hour weeks and frequent travel. Nathan looked at his newborn daughter, so small and vulnerable, and made the only choice he could make. He walked away from everything he'd worked toward and became a single father. His colleagues thought he'd lost his mind. His professors called it career suicide. But Nathan had held Sophie during those first terrifying weeks when her breathing was so fragile, when every night felt like a battle they might not win, and he knew he'd made the right choice. Sophie needed him more than any algorithm ever would. Now Nathan's days are measured in small victories, getting Sophie to school on time with her inhaler packed, picking up extra shifts to cover the copay for her new medication, helping her with homework while dinner cooks, reading her a bedtime story over video chat when he's working late. He doesn't regret the sacrifice, not for a moment. But sometimes late at night, when he's troubleshooting network problems for people who barely acknowledge his existence, Nathan wonders what his life might have looked like if things had been different. This morning, Nathan walks Sophie to school, her small hand tucked safely in his. She chatters about her upcoming science project, about her friend Emma's birthday party, about whether they can get ice cream this weekend if she remembers to use her inhaler without being reminded. "I love you, Daddy," Sophie says as they reach her school. "I love you too, sunshine. More than all the stars in the sky." It's their ritual, the same words every morning. Nathan watches until she disappears inside, then heads home to grab a few hours of sleep before his afternoon shift starts. Tonight he'll be back at CyberShield, fixing problems for people who see him as part of the furniture invisible and interchangeable. Nathan has no idea that tonight will be different. Tonight, his hidden expertise will be the only thing standing between a powerful CEO and complete disaster. Tonight, his kindness will crack open the heart of a woman who's forgotten how to trust anyone. Most importantly, tonight will be the beginning of Sophie getting the complete family she's always deserved, and Nathan finding a love he thought he'd lost forever. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. The 19th floor of CyberShield Technologies houses the company's main IT support center. It's a world away from Victoria Hayes' executive suite, filled with cubicles and humming servers instead of marble and crystal. This is where Nathan Brooks spends his night shifts invisible to the executives who depend on his work, but never acknowledge his existence. Nathan has encountered Victoria Hayes exactly 4 times in the 2 years he's worked for CyberShield. Each interaction has been brief, professional, and has left him with the clear understanding that, to her, he's barely human. The first time was 18 months ago. Victoria's assistant had called maintenance about a printer jam in the executive suite. Nathan had been the only technician available, so he'd taken his tools to the 42nd floor and fixed the problem in 15 minutes. "You do know this is a $20,000 machine," Victoria had said, standing over him with her arms crossed, watching every movement like she expected him to break something valuable. Nathan had simply nodded, finished the repair, and left without comment. He'd noticed the stress in her voice, the way her hands trembled slightly, and wondered what kind of pressure someone had to be under to take out their fear on a maintenance worker trying to help. The second encounter had been 6 months later. Victoria's laptop had locked her out after a security update, and she'd needed her password reset. Nathan had been called up again this time, finding Victoria pacing behind her desk like a caged animal, clearly frustrated by the delay. "Just fix the computer. Don't try to understand the system," she'd muttered, dismissing him before he'd even finished typing. Nathan had reset her access in under 5 minutes, but Victoria had already moved on to her phone calls, treating him like he'd never been there. As he'd packed up his tools, Nathan had noticed the empty office around her. No family photos, no personal touches, nothing that suggested a life beyond work. He'd felt a moment of genuine sympathy for anyone who lived with such isolation. The third time had been during the company holiday party last December. Victoria had attended for exactly 30 minutes, making the rounds with forced smiles and corporate small talk. Nathan had been working late that night, fixing a server issue, when she'd passed by the IT center on her way out. She'd glanced through the glass wall, seen him at his computer, and her expression had shifted to something like annoyance. As if his presence in the building after hours was somehow inappropriate, even though he was literally paid to be there. The fourth encounter had been just last month. Nathan had been replacing network cables in the conference room adjacent to Victoria's office when she'd walked in for an unexpected meeting. "Why is there a maintenance worker in here during business hours?" she'd demanded of her assistant, not bothering to address Nathan directly. "It's urgent network maintenance, Ms." Hayes, her assistant, had explained. Victoria had looked at Nathan like he was something unpleasant. She'd stepped in, then gestured dismissively. "Make it quick, and try not to disrupt anything important." Nathan had finished his work in silence, but he'd been struck by the loneliness he'd seen in her eyes when she thought no one was looking. Victoria Hayes commanded fear and respect, but Nathan couldn't help wondering when she'd last had a conversation that wasn't about business, when she'd last laughed at something genuinely funny, when she'd last felt truly connected to another human being. Their worlds couldn't be more different. Victoria lives in a penthouse apartment that costs more per month than Nathan earns in a year. She makes decisions that affect thousands of employees, controls budgets larger than some small countries, commands respect from world leaders and industry titans. Her days are filled with power lunches and board meetings and international phone calls that reshape entire markets. Nathan lives in a 2-bedroom apartment where the heat sometimes doesn't work, and the stairs creak loud enough to wake Sophie when he comes home from late shifts. His decisions revolve around whether they can afford name-brand medication this month, or if the generic will work just as well. His world is measured in homework help and bedtime stories, and the gentle sound of Sophie's breathing when her asthma is under control. Yet for all their differences, Nathan has seen something in Victoria that she probably doesn't even recognize herself. Under the designer suits and corporate armor, There's a person who's forgotten how to be vulnerable, how to trust, how to let anyone close enough to matter. Victoria sees Nathan as part of the building's infrastructure. Useful when something breaks, invisible the rest of the time. She doesn't know his daughter's name. Doesn't know he works 3 jobs. Doesn't know he gave up a brilliant career to be a single father. To her, he's interchangeable with any other maintenance worker. Nathan sees Victoria as someone who's built walls so high she can't remember what it feels like to be truly known by another person. He's watched her enough to recognize the signs of someone who's sacrificed everything personal for professional success and is starting to wonder if the trade was worth it. Neither of them imagines that in less than 12 hours, their separate worlds will collide in a way that changes everything. Victoria's empire will hang in the balance, and Nathan will be the only person capable of saving it. More than that, they'll discover that the distance between them isn't as vast as it seems, that underneath the differences in status and wealth, they're both people who've forgotten how to hope for something beyond mere survival. Tonight will be the night when Victoria Hayes learns that the most valuable people in her building aren't the ones with executive titles, and Nathan Brooks will discover that sometimes helping someone else is exactly how you find your way back to the person you used to be. 8:30 in the evening. Nathan's phone buzzes with a FaceTime call that instantly brightens his world. Sophie's face appears on the screen. Gap-toothed smile, beaming from Mrs. Chen's kitchen next door. "Hi, Daddy." Sophie waves enthusiastically at the camera. "Mrs. Chen let me help make dumplings for dinner. I only dropped one on the floor." Nathan grins, adjusting his phone so Sophie can see him clearly in the break room at Cyber Shield. "Only one. That's pretty good for a first-timer. Did you remember your evening breathing treatment?" "Yes, and I used my inhaler when we walked to the park after school. Mrs. Chen says I'm very responsible." Sophie's chest puffs with pride, and Nathan feels the familiar warmth that comes from watching his daughter grow stronger and more confident every day. "You are responsible, sunshine, the most responsible 8-year-old I know." Nathan glances at the clock on the wall. 15 more minutes, then Mrs. Chen will read you a story. "Okay, I'll be home when you wake up, and we'll have pancakes for breakfast." The good ones with the blueberries. The very best ones with extra blueberries. Nathan blows her a kiss. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky. I love you more than all the fish in the ocean." Sophie responds, completing their nightly ritual. The call ends, and Nathan sits back in his chair, smiling. Mrs. Chen has been a godsend since they moved into the apartment above Murphy's Hardware. At 72, she's got more energy than most people half her age, and a grandmother's intuition about when Nathan needs help. She never makes him feel like charity, just treats Sophie like the granddaughter she never had. And Nathan like the son who moved too far away. 4 floors above Nathan's head, Victoria Hayes is experiencing a very different kind of evening routine. Her office is still brightly lit at 8:30, documents scattered across her desk as she reviews every detail of tomorrow's security audit for the 100th time. The Pentagon contract represents everything she's worked toward for 15 years. $2 billion. 5 years of guaranteed revenue. A client base that will open doors to international markets she's only dreamed of accessing. More than that, it's validation that a woman who started with nothing could build something that matters on the world stage. Trevor Walsh, her chief technology officer, sits across from her desk, reviewing final security protocols. At 52, Trevor has been with Cyber Shield for 6 years, recruited personally by Victoria from a smaller competitor. She trusts his technical expertise, completely relies on his steady presence during high-stress situations. "Everything looks solid," Trevor says, closing the laptop he's been working on. "Our security processes have been tested by the best minds in the industry. Tomorrow's audit is just a formality." Victoria nods, but the tension doesn't leave her shoulders. She's built her success on preparing for every possible scenario, on controlling every variable. Tomorrow's audit isn't just about proving their security works. It's about proving she belongs among the elite tier of defense contractors, that Cyber Shield deserves to be trusted with national security. The Pentagon representatives will arrive at 8 sharp. Victoria says more to herself than to Trevor. Full security review, penetration testing, vulnerability assessments. 6 hours to prove we're unbreakable. Trevor stands gathering his papers. Victoria, relax. Our framework is bulletproof. You've seen the test results. Nothing gets through our security without authorization. Nothing. After Trevor leaves, Victoria remains at her desk, staring out at the Chicago skyline. The city sparkles beneath her, millions of lights representing millions of lives she never thinks about. People going home to families, to dinner conversations and bedtime stories, and the comfortable chaos of lives shared with others. Victoria's penthouse apartment waits for her 40 floors above the street. 1,600 square feet of marble and glass and carefully curated emptiness. She'll eat dinner alone, probably something delivered from the restaurant downstairs. She'll review more documents until her eyes hurt, then take a sleeping pill and hope for 6 hours of dreamless rest. She tells herself this is the price of extraordinary success. That loneliness is the trade-off for building something that matters. That needing no one means no one can disappoint her, betray her, abandon her the way her parents did when she was 16 and their marriage imploded, leaving her to finish high school while living in a studio apartment and working 3 jobs. What Victoria doesn't know is that 4 floors below a man she's never bothered to learn about is finishing the last few hours of a shift that's about to change both their lives forever. A man who's sacrificed everything for love, who understands that the most important victories happen not in boardrooms, but in small apartments where 8-year-old girls fall asleep feeling safe and protected. In 12 hours, Victoria's carefully controlled world will crumble, and Nathan Brooks will be the only person capable of putting it back together. More than that, he'll show her something she's forgotten in her climb to the top. That the strongest people aren't the ones who need no one. They're the ones who love someone enough to be vulnerable to sacrifice, to choose connection over control. The calm before the storm is almost over, and neither Victoria nor Nathan has any idea that their separate worlds are about to collide in ways that will transform them both. 10 o'clock Tuesday night, and Cyber Shield Technologies should be empty, except for security guards and night shift maintenance. Instead, the 42nd floor buzzes with the kind of controlled panic that happens when everything goes wrong at exactly the worst moment. Victoria Hayes stands before a wall of locked computer screens, her jaw clenched tight as 12 of the industry's most respected cybersecurity experts scramble around her like confused children. For the past 2 hours, they've tried everything their considerable training has taught them. Nothing works. CyberShield's own security framework has locked them out completely. The timeline is brutal and unforgiving. In 6 hours, Pentagon representatives will arrive for the final security audit before approving the largest defense contract in company history. $2 billion hangs in the balance, along with Victoria's reputation and the jobs of 3,000 employees. If they can't prove their security processes work by demonstrating complete control over them, the deal dies. Status report. Victoria snaps her voice, cutting through the nervous chatter. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, head of the security team, looks up from her laptop with barely concealed frustration. We've tried everything, Ms. Hayes. Emergency override codes, hardware resets, even physical disconnection and restart. The framework won't respond to any authorized commands. Victoria's hands curl into fists at her sides. These are people she handpicked from MIT, Stanford, Carnegie Mellon. Between them, they have over 100 years of experience in cybersecurity. They've defended Fortune 500 companies from the most sophisticated attacks in the world, and they're helpless against their own framework. What exactly are we looking at? Victoria demands. Complete lockout, explains James Rodriguez, the senior analyst. Every access point rejected, every password denied, every emergency override blocked. The framework is running perfectly, but it won't let anyone in. It's like someone changed all the locks and threw away the keys. The screens around the room display the same mocking message over and over. Access denied. Authorization required. Simple words that might as well be a death sentence for everything Victoria has built. She'd been in a dinner meeting with board members when the emergency alerts started flooding her phone. The security team had been running their final pre-audit checks, standard procedure, before any major client presentation, when suddenly everything went dark. Victoria had excused herself from the restaurant and arrived at headquarters 20 minutes later to find chaos. Now, with each passing minute, the situation grows more desperate. Victoria watches her experts run the same failed tests, suggest the same impossible solutions, offer the same useless explanations. They're brilliant people reduced to guessing, and their guesses aren't working. Could this be an external attack? Victoria asks, grasping for any explanation that makes sense. No signature of external penetration. Dr. Mitchell responds, no unusual network activity, no suspicious access attempts. Whatever happened, it was clean professional and came from someone who knew our framework intimately. That's when Nathan Brooks speaks up from the back of the room. He'd been called in 30 minutes ago as emergency backup, the kind of last resort move that happens when pride takes a back seat to desperation. His quiet voice cuts through the tension like a blade. It's not an external attack, Nathan says, stepping forward. This is internal sabotage. Every head in the room turns to stare at him. Victoria's expression shifts from frustration to something approaching incredulity. This is the maintenance worker who fixes printer jams and resets passwords. The invisible man she's barely acknowledged in 2 years of employment. Excuse me? Victoria's voice drips with condescension. Nathan moves closer to the screens, studying the patterns displayed there with eyes that see what others have missed. Look at the lockout sequence, he says, pointing to the code cycling through the displays. It's too precise, too clean. External hackers leave traces. They probe for weaknesses, test multiple entry points, create digital noise. This is surgical. Someone who already had authorized access used that access to lock everyone else out. The room goes silent except for the hum of cooling fans and the soft clicking of keyboards. Victoria stares at Nathan, her mind racing. Internal sabotage means someone she trusts, someone with high-level access, has deliberately tried to destroy her on the eve of the most important deal in company history. But looking at Nathan's calm, certain expression, Victoria realizes something else. He isn't guessing. Somehow this night shift technician, who she's never taken seriously, understands her framework better than the experts she's paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to hire. The absurdity of the situation hits Victoria like a physical blow. Her empire hangs by a thread, and the only person offering real insight is a man she wouldn't trust to fix a paper jam without supervision. The irony would be funny if it weren't so terrifying. Victoria's laughter cuts through the silence, sharp and humorless. It's the sound of someone watching everything they've worked for slip away while feeling completely powerless to stop it. She's angry, scared, and running out of options, a combination that makes her dangerous. She looks at Nathan, really looks at him for the first time, and sees only what she expects to see. Jeans and a work shirt, a company ID badge hanging from a retractable cord, hands that are clean but calloused from manual labor, a face that's pleasant but unremarkable, someone completely out of his depth offering theories he can't possibly understand. You think you can solve what 12 of the best security experts in the country can't? Victoria walks toward Nathan, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. Please enlighten us. Show us what we're all missing. Nathan doesn't react to her tone, doesn't flinch or defend himself. He simply meets her eyes with steady patience. I'm just saying what I see. You don't have to listen. Something about his calm infuriates Victoria even more. She wants him rattled, wants him to realize how ridiculous his suggestion is. Instead, he stands there like he's discussing the weather, like her entire world isn't collapsing around them. Desperation and spite war in Victoria's chest, and spite wins. She makes a decision that will change everything, born from panic and the cruel desire to prove this presumptuous maintenance worker wrong in the most public way possible. "Fine," Victoria says coldly, her voice carrying clearly to every person in the room. "You think you can crack this? You have 10 minutes. You open that framework in 10 minutes and I'll marry you. I'll actually do it." She smiles, cruel and mocking, enjoying the uncomfortable silence that follows. "But when you fail, when you prove you're exactly as useless as I think you are, you don't just leave this room, you leave this company. You never set foot in this building again. Deal." The security experts shift uncomfortably. This isn't professional, isn't appropriate. But nobody dares correct Victoria Hayes when she's in this mood. Her cruelty is legendary, but usually reserved for boardroom adversaries, not employees. Nathan looks at Victoria for a long moment, and something flickers in his eyes. Disappointment, maybe, or pity. "I don't want your job," Nathan says quietly. "And I don't need your marriage proposal. I just want to stop your people from blaming the wrong person when this falls apart." He glances at the locked screens, then back at Victoria. "But if opening this framework means your night shift employees don't lose their jobs over someone else's sabotage, then yes. I'll try." Victoria blinks, caught off guard. She'd expected him to backpedal, to make excuses, maybe even to walk away. Instead, he's turned her cruel joke into something else entirely. He's not doing this for recognition or reward. He's doing it to protect people who can't protect themselves. She hates that feeling, hates being made to look petty and small by someone she considers beneath her notice. 10 minutes, Victoria repeats, glancing at her watch. Starting now. Nathan nods and moves toward the main computer terminal. Victoria watches him settle into the chair, watches his hands hover over the keyboard for just a moment, and feels the first uncomfortable stirring of doubt. When Nathan begins typing, his fingers move with a speed and certainty that doesn't match his job title. Code scrolls across the screen faster than Victoria can follow. Commands executed with the kind of fluid expertise that takes years to develop. Victoria's skepticism wavers, replaced by something she doesn't want to acknowledge. What if she's wrong? What if this man she's consistently dismissed actually knows what he's doing? Around the room, the security experts lean forward, watching Nathan work with expressions that shift from amusement to confusion to growing amazement. Whatever he's doing, it's far beyond basic troubleshooting. And Victoria Hayes, who has built her entire identity on being the smartest person in every room, suddenly realizes she might have just made the biggest mistake of her life. The server room transforms into something resembling a medical emergency as Nathan settles at the main terminal. Victoria hovers behind him, her skepticism warring with desperate hope, while 12 security experts watch in silent amazement as lines of code begin flowing across the screen at impossible speed. Nathan's fingers move like those of a concert pianist, each keystroke deliberate and precise. He's accessing security layers that have stumped experts for 2 hours, bypassing authentication requirements that should be impossible to crack, navigating through CyberShield's most protected areas, like he built them himself. Which in a way he did. 7 years ago, Nathan Brooks wasn't fixing printers and resetting passwords. He was Dr. Nathan Brooks, youngest doctoral graduate in MIT's history, author of papers that revolutionized cybersecurity theory. The kind of mind that comes along once in a generation. The same theoretical framework he'd developed for his dissertation formed the backbone of CyberShield's entire security architecture. Victoria doesn't know this yet. All she sees is a maintenance worker somehow performing miracles at her computer terminal. That's when Nathan's phone buzzes. The sound cuts through the tense silence like an alarm. Nathan glances at the screen and his entire demeanor changes. Professional distance melts away, replaced by immediate concern. "I need to take this," he says, accepting the FaceTime call. Now Victoria's voice rises in disbelief. "You have 7 minutes left on your 10-minute deadline, and you're taking personal calls." But Nathan is already speaking, his voice gentle and warm in a way Victoria has never heard from any of her employees. "Hey, sunshine, what's wrong?" Sophie's face fills the small screen, her cheeks flushed, her breathing slightly labored. She's sitting up in bed at Mrs. Chen's apartment, clutching her inhaler with small hands that shake slightly. "Daddy, I couldn't breathe good," Sophie says, her voice smaller than usual. "It got all tight again. But I used my inhaler like you showed me, and I can breathe better now." Victoria watches transfixed as Nathan's expression fills with tenderness, so profound it's almost painful to witness. This is a side of human connection she's forgotten exists, the kind of love that transforms someone completely. "That's my brave girl," Nathan says softly. "You did everything exactly right." Deep breaths. "Okay, in through your nose, out through your mouth." "Show me." Sophie demonstrates her breathing technique while Nathan coaches her gently through the phone. "Perfect. You're doing so good, sunshine. I'll be home in a little while and we'll read another chapter of your book." "Okay, the one about the girl who talks to dolphins." "That's the one. Mrs. Chen is there with you. She's making tea. She says it'll help my throat feel better." Sophie yawns, clearly exhausted from the breathing episode. "I love you, Daddy. I love you more than all the stars in the sky." Nathan responds, and Victoria hears something crack in his voice. "Sleep now. I'll see you in the morning." The call ends, and Nathan slips his phone away. When he turns back to the keyboard, Victoria sees him differently. Not as a maintenance worker, or even as the surprisingly skilled technician cracking her framework, but as a human being living a life she can't begin to understand. A single father working nights to afford medication for his sick child. Someone who's somehow ended up being the only person in this building capable of saving everything she's built. "Your daughter Victoria," says the words coming out softer than she intended. "Sophie. She's 8. Severe asthma." Nathan's hands return to the keyboard, but Victoria catches the worry that lingers around his eyes. Sometimes it flares up at night. She's learning to manage it, but it's scary when you're that young and you can't catch your breath. Victoria feels something unfamiliar twist in her chest. When was the last time anyone had spoken to her the way Nathan just spoke to his daughter? When was the last time her problems mattered to someone else, the way Sophie's breathing clearly matters to this man? "The medication is expensive?" Victoria asks, surprising herself with the question. Nathan glances at her, as if gauging whether her interest is genuine. "The good stuff isn't covered by insurance. But we manage. She's worth every penny." Victoria watches Nathan return to his work with renewed focus, and understanding dawns. He's not doing this for glory or recognition or even job security. He's doing it because he needs this job to take care of his daughter, and he's protecting other people who need their jobs for the same reason. The timer on Victoria's watch shows 4 minutes remaining. Around them, the security experts have stopped their own futile efforts and are watching Nathan work with expressions of growing awe. Whatever he's doing is far beyond their expertise, far beyond what any night shift technician should be capable of. "Where did you learn to do this?" Victoria asks quietly. Nathan's fingers don't pause in their movement across the keyboard. "College," he says simply. "Long time ago." It's not a lie, but it's not the whole truth either. Victoria senses there's more to Nathan Brooks than his job title suggests, but she doesn't have time to ask follow-up questions. The countdown continues, and her empire hangs in the balance. What Victoria doesn't realize is that Nathan has already identified the source of the sabotage. The code signature is familiar because he taught the same principles to graduate students at MIT 7 years ago. He knows exactly who has betrayed her, and the knowledge sits heavy in his stomach. But first he has to save her company. Then he has to find a way to tell Victoria Hayes that someone she's trusted for 6 years has deliberately tried to destroy everything she's worked for. The clock shows 3 minutes and 15 seconds remaining. Nathan's code streams across the screen like digital poetry, each command bringing them closer to salvation or disaster. And in her corner office, high above, Victoria Hayes begins to understand that sometimes the most extraordinary people are the ones who choose invisible lives, who sacrifice recognition for love, who measure success not in dollars or power, but in 8-year-old girls who fall asleep feeling safe and protected. The challenge has been accepted. Now comes the test. With 2 minutes remaining on Victoria's cruel deadline, Nathan's fingers fly across the keyboard with the kind of speed and precision that leaves no doubt about his true capabilities. Lines of code cascade down the screen as he dismantles security layers that have baffled experts for hours, each command executed with surgical precision. Victoria leans closer, watching over Nathan's shoulder as he navigates through CyberShield's deepest security levels. She can't understand the technical details, but she recognizes mastery when she sees it. This isn't troubleshooting or educated guessing. This is someone who understands her framework at a fundamental level. There, Nathan murmurs, pulling up a diagnostic screen that makes several of the security experts gasp. I found the insertion point. Victoria stares at the code displayed on the monitor. To her it looks like gibberish, but the timestamp is clear enough. 6:47. Just hours before the security team had run their pre-audit checks. Someone had inserted malicious code designed to trigger during the most critical moment possible. Can you trace who did this? Victoria's voice is tight with barely controlled anger. Nathan's hands move to a second keyboard, fingers dancing across keys as he follows digital breadcrumbs through layers of security logs. The authorization signature should be here somewhere. Whoever did this had to use their legitimate credentials to access the core framework. Victoria watches as Nathan pulls up access logs, authentication records, and user activity reports. The experts around them have stopped pretending to work and are simply observing, mesmerized by Nathan's expertise. Found it, Nathan says quietly, and something in his tone makes Victoria's stomach drop. A name appears on the screen. Trevor Walsh, Chief Technology Officer. Victoria stares at the display, certain there's been some mistake. Trevor has been with CyberShield for 6 years. She recruited him personally, trusted him with the highest levels of access, relied on his technical expertise for every major security decision. The idea that he would sabotage the company is inconceivable. That's impossible, Victoria says, her voice barely above a whisper. Trevor would never. But Nathan is pulling up more evidence. Timestamps showing Trevor accessing restricted areas of the framework, log entries revealing attempts to cover his digital tracks, commands designed to trigger a complete lockdown during the Pentagon's security audit. The pattern becomes undeniable. Trevor Walsh has deliberately undermined CyberShield's security, timing his sabotage to coincide with the most important audit in company history. With Victoria's reputation destroyed and the defense contract lost, the board would demand new leadership. And who better to step into the CEO role than the CTO, who understands the company's technology better than anyone 8 years? Victoria says, her voice hollow. I trusted him for 6 years. Nathan glances at her, seeing the devastation in her eyes. I'm sorry. I know this isn't easy to hear. Victoria wants to argue, to demand more proof, to find some other explanation. But the evidence is overwhelming. Trevor has played a long game, earning her trust while positioning himself to destroy everything she's built, at exactly the moment when it would hurt most. Ms. Hayes, Dr. Mitchell calls from across the room. We have a bigger problem. Victoria looks up to see the ambient lighting shift from white to amber. Warning lights begin flashing on multiple computers. Her blood goes cold as she recognizes what's happening. The framework has moved into final defense mode. Dr. Mitchell explains, her voice tight with panic. If we can't provide proper authentication in the next few minutes, it will initiate a complete data wipe. Every file, every client record, every piece of proprietary software we've developed over 15 years, all of it will be permanently erased. The room erupts in controlled chaos as experts rush to their stations, trying desperately to stop the countdown that has appeared on every screen. But Victoria's attention remains fixed on Nathan, who continues typing with calm determination despite the crisis unfolding around them. "Can you stop it?" Victoria asks, hearing the desperation in her own voice. Nathan doesn't look up from his work. "Maybe. But I need CEO-level access. Full authority, no restrictions." Victoria's breath catches. What Nathan is asking for goes against every instinct she's developed over 15 years of business. Full SO access means he could control every aspect of CyberShield's infrastructure. See, every confidential file, make decisions that could destroy the company more thoroughly than any sabotage. She's never given that level of authority to anyone. Not to Trevor, not to the board members, not even to herself in some cases, where the framework required dual authorization. It violates every principle of cybersecurity she believes in. But the countdown shows 3 minutes and 47 seconds until complete data wipe. 3 minutes until everything she's built, everything she's sacrificed for, disappears forever. Victoria looks at Nathan, studying his calm expression, the steady movement of his hands, the complete absence of panic in his demeanor. This man has already demonstrated capabilities far beyond his job description. He's identified the saboteur when her experts couldn't. He's penetrated security process that should be impregnable. More than that, she's seen how he talks to his daughter. She's witnessed the gentleness, the love, the complete commitment to protecting someone who depends on him. Nathan Brooks isn't asking for power for its own sake. He's asking for the tools to save what can be saved. "Do it," Victoria says to Dr. Mitchell. "Give him full access. Everything." Dr. Mitchell's eyes widen. "Ms. Hayes, are you sure full CEO authority means—" "I know what it means." Victoria interrupts. "Do it now!" The authorization goes through and new security clearances populate on Nathan's screen. He exhales once, then dives back into the code with renewed intensity. Victoria moves closer, watching over his shoulder as he races against time to prevent total disaster. "Talk me through what you're doing," Victoria says quietly. Nathan's voice remains steady despite the pressure. Trevor's lockout created false authentication pathways that loop back on themselves, but he made one mistake. He assumed nobody would recognize the underlying architecture. Lines of code scroll past faster than Victoria can follow. "I know this code structure because I learned from the same professor who developed the theoretical framework. Same principles, same logical patterns." Victoria leans in closer. "You studied cybersecurity?" "Something like that," Nathan says, his attention focused on the screen. "The important thing is that I can see what Trevor did, and how to undo it. But I have to be careful. If I trigger the wrong failsafe, the data wipe accelerates instead of stopping. 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining." Victoria forces herself to breathe, to focus, to trust the man who's somehow become the only thing standing between her and complete ruin. Around them, the server room holds its collective breath as Nathan Brooks, night shift technician and hidden genius, fights to save an empire built by Victoria Hayes, CEO and woman, learning that sometimes the most important people in your life are the ones you never bothered to see. The truth about Trevor's betrayal sits heavy between them. But first comes salvation. The reckoning can wait. 1 minute and 45 seconds until total framework wipe. Nathan's hands move across the keyboard like a virtuoso pianist performing the most complex piece of his life. Code streams across the screen in patterns that seem almost musical, each command building toward either salvation or catastrophe. Victoria stands directly behind Nathan, now her hand resting unconsciously on the back of his chair. She can feel the tension in his shoulders, see the intense concentration in his profile, and for the first time in her professional life, she's putting complete trust in someone else's abilities. 90 seconds. Dr. Mitchell calls out, her voice tight with strain. Nathan doesn't acknowledge the update. His focus remains absolute as he navigates through Trevor's sabotage, following digital pathways that lead deeper into CyberShield's core architecture. Around the room, 12 security experts watch in silent amazement as this night shift technician accomplishes what they couldn't even attempt. "There's the primary lockout," Nathan murmurs, highlighting a section of code on his screen. "Trevor built in multiple fail-safes. If I disable this one incorrectly, it triggers 3 more that are designed to be impossible to stop." Victoria's throat tightens. "How do you know which approach is right?" Nathan's fingers pause for just a moment. "Because I helped develop the theory behind this type of security framework. 7 years ago at MIT. The admission hangs in the air like smoke." Victoria stares at Nathan's profile, understanding beginning to dawn. This isn't just a technician who learned some advanced skills. This is someone with deep expertise who's been hiding in plain sight for reasons she can't begin to understand. 60 seconds, Dr. Mitchell announces, her voice now openly panicked. Nathan returns to his work, his hands moving with renewed urgency. He opens multiple command windows, his attention split between different aspects of the security framework, typing commands faster than Victoria thought humanly possible. "Nathan," Victoria says quietly, "whatever your background is, I want you to know that I'm grateful. Whether this works or not, you've done more than anyone had a right to ask." Nathan glances at her briefly, something soft passing through his eyes. "It's going to work. I promise." Victoria wants to ask how he can be so certain, but there's no time for questions. The countdown shows 45 seconds, and every display in the server room pulses with amber warning lights that make the space feel like the bridge of a sinking ship. Nathan pulls up what appears to be the final layer of Trevor's sabotage, a complex authentication loop designed to prevent exactly the kind of intervention Nathan is attempting. Victoria watches as he studies the code for what feels like an eternity, but is probably only seconds. 30 seconds, Dr. Mitchell calls. Nathan's jaw tightens. He begins typing what Victoria assumes must be the final sequence, his movements precise and deliberate, despite the time pressure. Lines of code appear on the screen, each one representing a decision that could save or doom everything she's built. 20 seconds. Victoria's hands clench into fists at her sides. She forces herself to breathe, to stay calm, to let Nathan work without interference. Around them, the server room has gone completely silent except for the clicking of keys and the low hum of machinery. 15 seconds. Nathan hits a rapid sequence of keystrokes, then moves to a second keyboard, his left hand working independently of his right, as he executes what appears to be 2 separate command streams at the same time. Victoria has no idea what he's doing, but it looks impossibly complex. 10 seconds. "Come on," Nathan whispers under his breath, his concentration absolute. 5 seconds. Nathan enters a final command sequence and pushes back slightly from the keyboard, his posture tense as he waits to see whether his work has succeeded or failed. 3 seconds. The warning lights flicker. 2 seconds. Every screen in the server room flashes bright white. 1 second. Then impossibly beautifully lines of green text begin cascading across every monitor in the room. Full access restored. All processes operational. Security protocols active. Threat neutralized. The server room erupts in celebration. Security experts who have been holding their breath for hours suddenly start talking at once. some laughing with relief, others moving immediately to verify framework integrity. The amber warning lights shift back to normal white, and the countdown timer disappears, replaced with standard operational displays. Victoria stands frozen, staring at the screens, unable to fully process what has just happened. Nathan has actually done it. With literally seconds to spare, he's cracked a framework that 12 of the best security minds in the country couldn't touch, neutralized sabotage that would have destroyed her company and saved a $2 billion contract that represents everything she's worked toward. Nathan leans back in his chair, exhaustion evident in the way his shoulders slump. His hands, which had been moving with machine-like precision for the past hour, now shake slightly as the adrenaline begins to fade. "You actually did it!" Victoria says, her voice breathless with wonder and disbelief. Nathan looks up at her and smiles, a real smile that transforms his entire face and makes him look years younger. Nobody deserved to lose their jobs over someone else's ego. Victoria feels something crack open in her chest, some wall she's built so carefully over so many years. This man has saved her company, her reputation, her future, and his first thought isn't about recognition or reward. His first thought is about protecting innocent people who couldn't protect themselves. The irony isn't lost on her. She'd offered him marriage as a cruel joke, certain he would fail, and she could humiliate him publicly. Instead, he's succeeded beyond anyone's wildest expectations, and Victoria finds herself looking at Nathan Brooks with an emotion she hasn't felt in longer than she can remember. Genuine admiration for another human being. "The marriage thing," Victoria says, the words tumbling out before she can stop them. "I was joking. Obviously. I mean, it was cruel and stupid, and I shouldn't have—" "I know," Nathan interrupts gently. "It's okay. I didn't take it seriously." But Victoria can't stop her face burning with embarrassment and something deeper. "You saved everything. The company, the contract, all of it. You didn't have to do any of this. I was horrible to you and you still—" Her voice catches. Why Nathan stands, and for the first time all night, they're eye to eye, because it was the right thing to do, and because you deserved help, even if you didn't think you did. He pauses, his expression gentle. Nobody should have to face betrayal alone. Not when someone can do something about it. Victoria feels tears threaten and blinks them away furiously. She doesn't cry. She's built an empire on not crying. But standing here, looking at Nathan's quiet kindness and his complete lack of judgment, she feels all her carefully constructed armor beginning to crack. And for the first time, in longer than she can remember, Victoria Hayes doesn't feel alone. The executive conference room on the 42nd floor provides a sanctuary from the chaos of the server room. Victoria leads Nathan here, after dismissing the security team with instructions to begin documenting the sabotage evidence and preparing for Trevor's confrontation. They need privacy for the conversation that's about to change everything. Nathan stands near the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at Chicago's skyline, and Victoria finds herself studying him with new eyes. Gone is the invisible maintenance worker she's dismissed for 2 years. In his place is someone whose hidden depths she's only beginning to understand. "I owe you more than an apology," Victoria says, settling into a chair across from where Nathan stands. "I owe you an explanation of just how wrong I was about everything." Nathan turns from the window, his expression patient and open. "You don't owe me anything. You were scared under pressure. People say things they don't mean when everything they've worked for is threatened." "That's generous," Victoria says, "but it doesn't excuse treating you the way I did. Dismissing you, insulting your intelligence, making assumptions based on nothing but prejudice." She takes a deep breath, forcing herself to meet his eyes. "What you did tonight, what you've been capable of all along, I should have seen it. Should have recognized that someone with your abilities wouldn't be working night shifts fixing printers unless there was a reason." Nathan settles into the chair across from her, and Victoria notices details she's missed before. The intelligence in his dark eyes, the way he carries himself with quiet confidence, the calluses on his hands that speak of manual labor, but also the long, precise fingers of someone who thinks with his hands as well as his mind. "Tell me," Victoria says simply. "Help me understand who you really are." Nathan is quiet for a long moment, as if deciding how much to reveal. When he speaks, his voice carries the weight of choices made and roads not taken. "Dr. Nathan Brooks," he says simply. MIT class of 2010. Doctorate in Computer Science with a focus on cybersecurity architecture. I was 25 when I graduated. Victoria's breath catches. She'd suspected Nathan had advanced training, but this revelation transforms everything she thought she knew. I was considered something of a prodigy. Nathan continues, his tone matter-of-fact rather than boastful. My dissertation developed the theoretical framework for adaptive security processes. The principles I wrote about 7 years ago form the backbone of CyberShield's current architecture. You built our security framework, I created the theory. Your development team implemented it, but yes, the core concepts are mine. That's why I could crack Trevor's sabotage. I recognized the fingerprint because I taught those same principles to graduate students. Victoria stares at Nathan, her mind reeling. The job offers must have been extraordinary. They were. Defense contractors, tech giants, government research facilities. I had my pick of positions that would have set me up for life. Nathan's expression grows distant. I accepted a classified research position with the Department of Defense. Dream job, unlimited budget chance to work on projects that would reshape national security. What changed Nathan's voice grows soft, intimate. Sarah. My wife. She died giving birth to Sophie. The simple statement lands like a physical blow. Victoria has built her life on controlling outcomes, on never allowing herself to be vulnerable to that kind of loss. Hearing Nathan speak about it so directly without self-pity or bitterness, she realizes she's in the presence of someone who's survived something she can barely imagine. The position required 80-hour weeks and frequent travel. Nathan continues. I looked at Sophie, so small and fragile, and realized I had a choice to make. Career or daughter? I couldn't do both, not alone, not right. So you walked away. I walked away from everything. The research position, the academic offers, the consulting opportunities. I found work that would let me be present for Sophie, that would give me flexibility when she needed medical care. Victoria thinks about her own climb to success, the relationships she's sacrificed, the personal connections she's abandoned in pursuit of professional achievement. Your colleagues must have thought you'd lost your mind. Nathan's smile is sad, but genuine. They did. Called it career suicide, waste of talent, temporary insanity that I'd eventually regret. Eventually they stopped calling. Do you regret it? Never. Nathan's response is immediate and certain. Sophie needed me more than any algorithm ever would. She's had serious health challenges, multiple hospitalizations, treatments that required someone who could drop everything and be there. I couldn't have done that from a government research facility or a corporate boardroom. Victoria feels something shift in her chest, some fundamental belief about success and sacrifice beginning to reorganize itself. She's spent 15 years convinced that extraordinary achievement required extraordinary selfishness, that needing no one meant no one could hurt you. But you kept the skills, Victoria says. You didn't lose the expertise. Knowledge doesn't disappear just because you're not using it professionally. I've stayed current with security which followed developments in the field, even consulted occasionally on small projects that I could do from home while Sophie was sleeping. Nathan pauses, studying Victoria's expression. I know what you're thinking. Why hide it? Why not use my background to get a better position? More recognition, higher pay. Victoria nods because that's exactly what she's thinking. Because the moment I reveal my background, everything changes. Suddenly, I'm not just Nathan who helps with homework and makes breakfast every morning. I'm Dr. Brooks, who could be making 10 times as much money working for prestigious companies. The guilt would be overwhelming for both of us. Nathan's voice grows firm. Sophie doesn't need to carry the weight of my sacrifice. She needs to know that her father chose to be present for her because she's worth it, not because he gave up something valuable for her sake. Victoria sits in silence, absorbing Nathan's words. Everything she thought she knew about ambition, about success, about what it means to build a meaningful life has been challenged by this quiet man who chose love over achievement. "You could have any position in the industry," Victoria says finally. "Even now, after tonight, companies would fight over you. Why stay here? Why keep fixing printers and working night shifts?" Nathan's expression grows gentle. "Because Sophie needs consistency. Because the night shift means I'm home when she wakes up scared about breathing. Because Mrs. Chen next door has become family, and the neighborhood kids know Uncle Nathan fixes their computers for free." He gestures toward the window, toward the city beyond. "I know it looks like I've settled for less, but I haven't. I've chosen different. Sophie is 8 years old with a chronic condition and no mother. This is exactly where I need to be." Victoria feels tears threaten and blinks them away. She's spent her entire adult life believing that compromise was weakness, that settling for anything less than complete professional domination was failure. Nathan has shown her something she never imagined possible, that the strongest people aren't the ones who need no one. They're the ones who love someone enough to sacrifice everything, who choose connection over control, who understand that some victories can't be measured in dollars or recognition. "I want to promote you," Victoria says suddenly. "Head of security, executive position, salary that matches your expertise. You'd report directly to me." Nathan is already shaking his head. "I appreciate the offer, but I can't accept it." "Why not?" "You've more than proven your qualifications. Because Sophie needs me to be available when she wakes up struggling to breathe. Because executive positions mean long hours and constant crisis management. Because I made a promise to a little girl who's already lost one parent that I would be there for whatever she needed." Nathan's voice grows firm but kind. "I don't measure success by title or salary, Victoria. I measure it by whether Sophie feels safe and loved and protected. That's worth more than any promotion." Victoria stares at Nathan, understanding finally dawning. He isn't settling for less. He's chosen more. More connection, more presence, more love than most people ever experience. He's built a life of extraordinary richness by choosing what matters most. And looking at his peaceful expression, Victoria realizes that Nathan Brooks might be the most successful person she's ever met. Trevor Walsh arrives at CyberShield headquarters at 11:30 p.m., rushing through the lobby with an expression of carefully crafted concern. He'd received Victoria's urgent call 20 minutes ago, summoning him back to the office for an emergency consultation about the framework lockout. Now he steps off the elevator onto the 42nd floor, mentally preparing to play his role as the steady, reliable CTO arriving to help solve an impossible crisis. What Trevor doesn't know is that Nathan Brooks has already solved the crisis, uncovered the sabotage, and provided Victoria with irrefutable evidence of his betrayal. Trevor is walking into a trap of his own making. Victoria stands near the conference room windows when Trevor enters, her posture controlled and professional. Nathan sits at the table, his laptop open, wearing the same quiet confidence that has characterized his work all evening. "Victoria, thank God," Trevor says, moving toward her with apparent relief. "I came as soon as I got your message." "What's the situation? Have the experts made any progress?" Victoria studies Trevor's face, searching for signs of deception now that she knows what to look for. His silver hair is perfectly styled despite the late hour. His expensive suit shows no signs of hurry or stress. His eyes carry just the right amount of concern without betraying any real anxiety. 6 years, Victoria thinks. 6 years of trusting this man, relying on his expertise, considering him one of her closest professional allies. The betrayal cuts deeper than any business loss ever could. "We've made progress," Victoria says carefully. "In fact, we've solved the problem completely." Trevor's expression shifts slightly, confusion replacing relief. "Solved it how the lockout was designed to be virtually unbreakable." The words slip out before Trevor can catch them, and Victoria sees Nathan's eyebrows rise slightly. Designed to be unbreakable. Not believed to be or appeared to be. Designed. The language of someone who built the trap himself. "This is Nathan Brooks." Victoria continues gesturing toward Nathan. "He's the one who cracked the framework." Trevor glances at Nathan dismissively, his expression suggesting mild annoyance that a maintenance worker has been included in executive-level discussions. "I'm sure he was helpful with basic troubleshooting, but the real work would have required advanced expertise. The real work required someone who understood the sabotage from the inside," Nathan says, quietly opening his laptop screen so Trevor can see it clearly. Trevor's face goes ashen as he recognizes what's displayed there. Authentication logs showing his access to restricted areas. Command histories revealing his attempts to cover his digital tracks. Timestamps proving he'd inserted malicious code hours before the security audit. The evidence is overwhelming, undeniable, and presented with the kind of detailed analysis that only someone with deep expertise could provide. "This is impossible," Trevor says, but his voice lacks conviction. "These records must be corrupted or misinterpreted. I would never." Tuesday, 6:47 p.m. Nathan interrupts reading from his screen. "You accessed the core authentication framework using your CTO credentials. You inserted a cascading lockout protocol designed to trigger during security testing. The code signature matches programming techniques taught in advanced cybersecurity architecture at MIT circa 2010. Trevor's composure cracks visibly. He looks between Victoria and Nathan, understanding dawning that his carefully planned sabotage has been not only uncovered, but dissected with surgical precision. "You weren't supposed to fail," Victoria says, her voice cold and steady. "The lockout was supposed to destroy my credibility with the Pentagon, make me look incompetent to the board. With the defense contract lost and shareholders demanding new leadership, you'd be the obvious choice to replace me." Trevor straightens, and for a moment his mask slips completely. Victoria sees the calculation in his eyes, the measuring assessment of someone deciding whether to continue lying or admit the truth. "You have no idea what it's like," Trevor says. Finally, his voice bitter. 6 years of watching you take credit for my technical expertise. 6 years of building processes you couldn't begin to understand while you collected the recognition and the rewards. Victoria stares at him, genuinely shocked by the venom in his voice. "Trevor, you were well compensated. Your position, your salary, your stock options were crumbs compared to what I deserved." Trevor snaps. "I built CyberShield's reputation, my innovations, my security protocols, my technical leadership. But you're the one on magazine covers, you're the one giving keynote speeches, you're the one getting credit for work you've never been capable of doing." The bitterness pours out of Trevor like poison, years of resentment finally given voice. The Pentagon contract should have been my victory. My processes protecting national security, my architecture being trusted with the most sensitive data in government. But instead, it would be another triumph for Victoria Hayes' tech visionary. So you decided to destroy everything Nathan says quietly. Trevor's laugh is harsh and ugly. I decided to take what was rightfully mine. With you discredited and the company's reputation in ruins, the board would have demanded new leadership. Someone with real technical expertise. Someone who understood the processes from the ground up. Victoria feels a strange kind of relief hearing Trevor's confession. For a moment, she'd wondered if she'd somehow driven him to this, if her leadership style or treatment of employees had created the conditions for betrayal. Now she understands that Trevor's actions came from entitlement and ego, not justified grievance. You would have destroyed 3,000 jobs, Victoria says. People who depend on this company for their livelihoods, who've done nothing wrong except work for someone you decided to hate. Trevor shrugs the gesture, casual and chilling. Acceptable losses. The best employees would have found positions elsewhere. The rest weren't my concern. Nathan closes his laptop with a sharp click. They were mine. Trevor looks at Nathan as if noticing him for the first time. And who exactly are you? Some night shift technician who got lucky with basic troubleshooting, Dr. Nathan Brooks, MIT, 2010. The theoretical framework you used for your sabotage, I developed it. The security architecture you've been managing for 6 years, I designed it. The code signature you left behind, I recognized it because I taught those same principles to graduate students. Trevor's face goes completely white as the implications sink in. He's been outsmarted not by luck or coincidence, but by someone whose expertise exceeds his own. Impossible, Trevor whispers. If you have that background, why are you working maintenance? Nathan's expression remains calm, almost pitying. Because unlike you, I understand what actually matters. Family, love, being present for people who depend on me. Some things are worth more than titles or recognition. Security arrives within minutes of Victoria's call. Trevor doesn't resist as they escort him from the building, but his final words are directed at Victoria with undisguised hatred. You'll never survive without me. This company will fall apart, and everyone will see that you're nothing but marketing and ambition. The elevator doors close on Trevor Walsh's face, and Victoria exhales for what feels like the first time in hours. The immediate crisis is over, but the emotional aftermath is just beginning. 6 years, Victoria says quietly, more to herself than to Nathan. How did I not see it? Nathan's voice is gentle. Because you trusted someone you had every reason to trust. Betrayal isn't a reflection on your judgment. It's a reflection on his character. Victoria nods, but the sting remains. She's built her success on reading people, on understanding motivations, on staying ahead of potential threats. Trevor's deception represents a failure of the instincts she's relied on for 15 years. The board will want a full investigation, Victoria says. Legal proceedings, security reviews, public statements. This is going to be messy. But it's over. Nathan points out, your processes are secure, your contract is safe, and the person responsible is facing consequences. Tomorrow's audit will proceed as planned. Victoria looks at Nathan. This man who appeared out of nowhere to save everything she'd built and feels something she hasn't experienced in longer than she can remember. Gratitude. Not just for his technical expertise, but for his kindness in the face of her cruelty. His patience with her prejudice, his grace under pressure, that would have broken lesser people. Thank you, Victoria says simply. For everything. For saving the company, for protecting jobs, for showing me that I was wrong about so many things. Nathan stands, gathering his laptop and preparing to leave. I should get home. Sophie will be worried if I'm too late. Nathan Victoria calls as he reaches the door. What you said about family being more important than titles or recognition. You're right. I'm starting to understand that. Nathan smiles, and Victoria sees something in his expression that might be hope. Understanding is the first step, he says. Acting on that understanding is what makes the difference. The door closes behind him, leaving Victoria alone with her thoughts and the beginning of a transformation she never saw coming. 3 weeks pass before Victoria sees Nathan again. The aftermath of Trevor's sabotage consumes her completely. Board meetings that stretch past midnight. legal proceedings that require her testimony, public statements carefully crafted to minimize damage to CyberShield's reputation while ensuring justice for Trevor's crimes. The Pentagon audit proceeds flawlessly. With Nathan's fixes in place, CyberShield's security processes perform exactly as designed, earning praise from government analysts and securing the $2 billion contract that will define the company's future. Victoria's reputation not only survives, but grows stronger with industry publications praising her leadership during crisis. But success feels different now, less consuming, less all-encompassing. Victoria finds herself leaving the office at reasonable hours, eating dinner at her dining table instead of her desk, sleeping 7 hours instead of 4. She's not sure what's changed, only that the endless pursuit of more seems less urgent than it did a month ago. Which is why she decides to attend CyberShield's annual Family Day for the first time in the event's 5-year history. The company picnic takes place on a Saturday in early June at Grant Park, just a few blocks from CyberShield headquarters. Victoria had started the tradition years ago, at her public relations team's suggestion, but had never actually participated. She'd always had more pressing matters to attend to, more important meetings to schedule, more critical work that couldn't wait. This year feels different. Victoria finds herself wanting to see the faces behind the employee ID numbers, to understand the lives that depend on the company she's built, to connect with something real beyond quarterly reports and profit margins. She arrives fashionably late, driving herself instead of using the company car service, wearing jeans and a casual shirt instead of her usual designer suits. Walking across the grass toward the cluster of picnic tables and activity stations, Victoria feels oddly out of place among the families and children and laughter. That's when she spots them. Nathan Brooks crouches near the children's activity tent, tying the shoelace of a little girl with light brown curls and warm eyes that mirror his own. Sophie. Victoria's breath catches as she watches them together, seeing for the first time the person who matters most in Nathan's world. Sophie is small for 8, made smaller by the medical conditions that have shaped her young life, but her face glows with the kind of joy that comes from feeling completely safe and loved. She chatters animatedly to Nathan as he works on her shoes, her hands gesturing enthusiastically to emphasize whatever story she's telling. Nathan listens with the complete attention that Victoria has seen him give to computer problems and security crises. His expression is tender, patient, amused. This is Nathan in his element, not as a technician or hidden genius, but as a father who has built his entire life around ensuring his daughter's happiness. "Daddy, who's that lady?" Sophie asks, spotting Victoria before Nathan notices her approach. Nathan looks up, and his expression shifts from surprise to something warmer, more welcoming. He straightens slowly, brushing grass from his knees. "Hi," he says simply, and Victoria hears genuine warmth in his voice. "I didn't expect to see you here." Sophie tugs on Nathan's sleeve. "Daddy, you didn't answer my question. Who's that lady?" Victoria approaches carefully, aware that she's entering a space that belongs to them, that her presence here represents something significant that she doesn't fully understand yet. "Sophie," Nathan says gently, "this is Ms. Hayes. She's my boss at the office." Sophie studies Victoria with the frank assessment that only children possess, taking in her casual clothes, her nervous smile, her obvious uncertainty about how to interact with an 8-year-old. "You're really pretty," Sophie announces finally. "Are you here by yourself?" "That's kind of sad," Sophie Nathan says with gentle reproach, but Victoria finds herself laughing, despite the child's brutal honesty. "It is kind of sad," Victoria agrees, kneeling down to Sophie's eye level. "I don't have any family to bring with me." Sophie's expression grows immediately sympathetic. "That's okay. Families are complicated anyway. Some people think families only happen one way, but I think families happen lots of different ways." Victoria glances at Nathan, who's watching the interaction with careful attention, ready to intervene if needed, but allowing Sophie to lead the conversation. "What do you mean about different ways?" Victoria asks, genuinely curious. Sophie settles cross-legged on the grass, clearly preparing for a serious discussion. "Well, me and Daddy are a family, but we're not like families in books where there's a mummy and Daddy and kids. My mummy died when I was born, so it's just us two." Victoria's chest tightens at Sophie's matter-of-fact explanation. "I'm sorry about your mummy, sweetheart." "It's okay," Sophie says with the resilience that children sometimes develop too early. "I don't remember her, so I don't feel sad about it. Daddy tells me stories about her, sometimes nice stories that make me happy." She looks up at Nathan with pure adoration. "Daddy takes really good care of me. He knows all about my breathing medicine. And he makes really good grilled cheese sandwiches, and he reads me stories every night before bed." Nathan's eyes fill with emotion as he listens to his daughter's description of their life together. Victoria realizes she's witnessing something precious and private, a child's unguarded love for the parent who has become her entire world. "Your shoes are untied again," Victoria observes, noticing Sophie's laces have come loose during their conversation. "I'm not very good at tying them," Sophie admits with frustration. "Daddy ties them for me, but they always come undone." Victoria looks at this complex knot Nathan had been working on when she arrived, understanding suddenly why Sophie struggles. "Can I show you a different way? A way that might stay tied better?" Sophie nods eagerly, and Victoria demonstrates the technique her own mother had taught her 30 years ago. Instead of the traditional bunny ears method, she shows Sophie how to create a more secure knot that's less likely to slip. "Like this, see? You make the first loop, but you wrap the second one through twice instead of once. It holds better." Sophie follows Victoria's movements carefully, her tongue poking out the side of her mouth in concentration. After 2 attempts, she successfully completes the knot on her own. "I did it," Sophie exclaims, jumping to her feet to test the knot's durability. "It feels different. Tighter." "That's because it is tighter," Victoria explains. "It's a trick my mother taught me when I was about your age. I used to trip over my shoelaces all the time." Nathan watches this interaction with wonder. He's seen Victoria command boardrooms, intimidate competitors, make decisions that affect thousands of people. But this gentle patience with his daughter reveals a completely different side of her personality. Something warm and nurturing that she keeps carefully hidden beneath her professional armor. "Can you stay and play with us?" Sophie asks, suddenly, reaching out to take Victoria's hand with the automatic trust that children give to adults who treat them kindly. Victoria looks at Nathan, uncertain about protocol, about boundaries, about whether her presence is welcome or intrusive. "You're welcome to join us," Nathan says quietly. And Victoria hears something in his voice that might be hope. "What are we playing?" Victoria asks Sophie. Everything Sophie announces dramatically. "First, we're going to try the ring toss game, but Daddy's terrible at it. Then we're going to get our faces painted. I want to be a butterfly." Victoria spends the next 2 hours discovering what it feels like to be part of a family outing. She attempts ring toss and proves to be as terrible as Nathan, much to Sophie's delighted amusement. She stands patiently in line for face painting, listening, as Sophie explains the difference between monarchs and swallowtails and painted ladies. When it's Victoria's turn, Sophie insists she get a small purple butterfly painted on her cheek. "Because purple is the color of special people," Sophie explains seriously. "And you're special because you taught me the good way to tie my shoes, and because you're not too busy to play games, even though you're important." Victoria stares at her reflection in the face painter's mirror, seeing herself with bright purple wings decorating her cheek, and realizes she looks like someone who belongs to people who matter. They share cotton candy that turns their tongues ridiculous shades of blue and pink. Sophie insists on feeding the ducks at the pond, carefully rationing bread crusts to ensure all the birds get fair shares. Nathan helps her climb on the playground equipment, staying close but allowing her independence. Walking back toward the parking area as the afternoon winds down, Sophie slips her hand into Victoria's with casual affection. "This was the best family day ever," Sophie announces. "Usually it's just me and Daddy, which is fun, but 3 people is better for some games." Victoria squeezes Sophie's small hand gently. "I had a wonderful time too, sweetheart. Thank you for letting me join you." Sophie stops walking and looks up at Victoria with serious eyes. "You should come with us to the zoo next week. We go every Saturday when I don't have doctor appointments. The penguins are my favorite." Victoria glances at Nathan, who nods encouragingly. "I'd love to see the penguins," Victoria says. "If your daddy says it's okay." "It's more than okay," Nathan says, and Victoria hears something in his voice that makes her heart skip. "You're welcome to join us anytime, Victoria. Sophie's right about families happening in different ways. Sometimes they grow when the right people find each other." As Victoria drives home that evening, she catches glimpses of herself in the rear-view mirror and sees the fading purple butterfly still visible on her cheek. She looks like someone who spent the day laughing. Someone who belongs somewhere, someone who matters to people who matter. For the first time in longer than she can remember, Victoria Hayes doesn't want to wash her face before bed. Summer passes in a rhythm Victoria never expected to experience. Saturday mornings that begin with breakfast at Nathan's apartment, where she learns that Sophie has opinions about everything from pancake shapes to the proper way to feed goldfish. Tuesday and Thursday evenings that stretch past Sophie's bedtime, because Victoria finds herself lingering in their warm, chaotic kitchen, helping with homework and listening to stories about third-grade drama. Victoria discovers that Nathan is a terrible cook, but makes excellent grilled cheese sandwiches. That Sophie knows all the words to every Disney song ever written, but refuses to sing them in front of anyone except family. That their small apartment above Murphy's Hardware contains more genuine happiness than her penthouse has ever held. The transformation happens gradually, so slowly Victoria doesn't notice until Rebecca, her assistant, comments on it during a routine Monday morning briefing. "You seem different lately," Rebecca observes, studying Victoria's face with the careful attention of someone who's worked for the same person for 8 years. "Lighter, happier." Victoria pauses in her review of the day's schedule, considering Rebecca's words. "I feel different," she admits. "More present, maybe, like I'm not always thinking 3 steps ahead of where I am." "It's a good look on you," Rebecca says with a smile. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. What Victoria is doing is learning to love completely. Not the careful, conditional affection she's offered in past relationships, but the kind of overwhelming commitment that reorganizes every priority in your life." She finds herself thinking about Sophie during board meetings, wondering if her breathing has been good that day, if she remembered to use her inhaler at recess, if she's excited about the weekend trip to the children's museum they've planned. She thinks about Nathan during late evening work sessions, remembering the way his face lights up when Sophie accomplishes something new, the patience he shows during her difficult breathing episodes, the gentle strength that has shaped every choice he's made since becoming a single father. One Thursday evening in late July, Victoria is reading to Sophie before bedtime, a ritual that has become as natural as breathing. They are halfway through a chapter book about a girl who discovers she can communicate with dolphins when Sophie interrupts the story with a question. "Victoria, do you remember what our house felt like before you started coming over?" Victoria sets the book aside, giving Sophie her complete attention. "No, sweetheart." What did it feel like? Sophie considers this seriously. Her small face scrunched in concentration. "Kind of quiet. Not bad quiet, but like something was missing. Like when you're doing a puzzle and there's a piece that should fit somewhere but you can't find it." Victoria's throat tightens with emotion. "And now it feels complete," Sophie says simply. "Like you were always supposed to be here, but it just took us a while to find you." After Sophie falls asleep, Victoria finds Nathan in the kitchen washing dishes and humming quietly to himself. She wraps her arms around his waist from behind, resting her cheek against his shoulder. She asked me if I remembered what your house felt like before I started coming over, Victoria says softly. Nathan leans back against her, his hands stilling in the warm dishwater. What did you tell her? That I can barely remember my life before you two, Victoria admits. That everything important started the night you saved my company, and I realized I'd been measuring success all wrong. Nathan turns in her arms, studying her face in the soft kitchen light. Victoria, there's something I need to tell you. Something I've been thinking about for weeks now. Victoria's heart speeds up, uncertain whether she's about to hear something wonderful or terrible. I want to make this permanent, Nathan says, his voice steady but intense. I want to marry you. I want you to adopt Sophie. I want us to build a life together, officially and completely. Victoria stares at him, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he's offering. Nathan, that's everything I want too, but are you sure? Really sure? Sophie's care is complicated. Her medical needs, her routines, the constant vigilance she requires. Are you ready for that level of responsibility? Nathan's expression grows fierce with love. Victoria, I'm asking you to share custody of a child who has 3 a.m. asthma attacks that send us to the emergency room. I'm asking you to blend your high-profile corporate life with homework help and parent-teacher conferences and nebulizer treatments. I'm asking you to choose us knowing that Sophie will always come first, that every decision we make has to consider her health and happiness. I know exactly what I'm asking, Victoria says, her voice thick with emotion. I'm asking for all of it. The medical emergencies and the homework struggles and the ordinary cranky moments when she's tired and doesn't want to take her medicine. I'm asking because I want the complete package, not just the happy parts. Nathan cups her face gently in his hands. Are you sure? Because once we do this, there's no halfway. Sophie needs stability, consistency. I can't risk her getting attached to the idea of having a mother figure and then losing that. Victoria meets his eyes steadily. Nathan, I have spent my entire adult life being cautious about commitment, protecting myself from vulnerability. But what I feel for you and Sophie isn't careful or conditional. It's complete. I want to be Sophie's mother in every way that matters. I want to be your wife, your partner, your family. Nathan's smile transforms his entire face. Then yes, I want to marry you. Yes, I want you to adopt Sophie. Yes, I want a permanent life together. They decide to tell Sophie in the morning, over pancakes, her favorite breakfast, and the meal where important family announcements should be made. Victoria barely sleeps that night, her mind spinning with plans and possibilities, and the profound joy of knowing she'll never have to leave this small, perfect world they've built together. When Sophie comes stumbling into the kitchen the next morning, rubbing sleep from her eyes, Nathan and Victoria are waiting with slightly burned pancakes and hearts full of the most important question they've ever asked. Good morning, sunshine, Nathan says, lifting Sophie onto her chair and kissing the top of her head. Victoria and I have something we want to talk to you about. Sophie perks up immediately, sensing the significance of the moment. Something good or something doctor visit? Something very good, Victoria says, reaching across the table to take Sophie's small hand. Sophie, how would you feel if I became part of your family permanently, if I married your daddy and became your mom officially? Sophie's eyes go wide. Like really, not just visits and sleepovers, but living here all the time. Really, Nathan confirms. Victoria would adopt you, which means she'd legally be your mom. We'd be a family of 3 officially. Sophie launches herself across the table into Victoria's arms with such enthusiasm that she nearly knocks over the orange juice. Yes, I want that so much. Can we do it right now? Victoria laughs, holding Sophie tightly against her chest. "It takes a little longer than right now, sweetheart. There are papers to sign and legal things to arrange. But yes, we're going to do it." Sophie pulls back to look at Victoria's face, her expression suddenly serious. "You'll really be my mom? Not bonus mom, or almost mom, but real mom. The realest mom." Victoria promises, tears streaming down her face. "If you want me to be, I want you to be," Sophie says solemnly. "I picked you, you know. At the company picnic. I saw how you looked at Daddy when you thought we weren't watching, and I knew you were the right person. Grown-ups are really slow about figuring out important stuff." Nathan laughs, wiping his own eyes. "You picked her, did you? She was obviously perfect." Sophie explains with the matter-of-fact wisdom of 8-year-olds. "She's smart, and she's nice, and she already loves us. Plus, she knows the good way to tie shoes, and she doesn't mind when I sing Disney songs in the car." Victoria realizes that somewhere between teaching Sophie shoelace techniques and reading bedtime stories and sharing cotton candy that turned their tongues purple, she stopped being Victoria Hayes, CEO, and became something infinitely more valuable. She became Sophie's mom, Nathan's partner, someone who belonged completely to people who belonged completely to her. "My girls," Nathan says softly, looking at them with an expression of such profound contentment that Victoria's heart nearly bursts with joy. The early October air carries the crisp promise of autumn as Victoria stands before her bedroom mirror, adjusting the simple ivory dress she's chosen for today. No elaborate gown, no designer creation that costs more than most people's cars, just a dress that makes her feel beautiful and comfortable and exactly like herself. Rebecca bustles around the room, putting finishing touches on Victoria's hair, which has been styled simply and elegantly. Through the window, Grant Park sparkles in the afternoon sunlight, decorated with white flowers and 40 chairs arranged in neat rows. "You look perfect," Rebecca says, stepping back to admire her work. Nervous, terrified Victoria admits with a laugh. Not about marrying Nathan, but about whether Sophie will approve of the ceremony. She's been very involved in the planning process. Sophie has indeed been involved, offering opinions on everything from flowers to music, to whether the cake should have chocolate or vanilla frosting. She'd insisted on purple ribbon for the decorations because purple is the color of special people, and she'd requested that her friend Emma from school be invited because Emma has never seen a real wedding. A soft knock on the door interrupts Victoria's thoughts. "Come in," she calls. Sophie bounces into the room wearing her purple flower girl dress, her hair adorned with small white flowers that match the ones decorating the ceremony space. Her face glows with excitement and barely contained energy. "Victoria, you look like a real princess," Sophie announces, spinning in a circle to show off her own dress. "Are you ready to marry Daddy and be my real mom?" "I'm ready," Victoria says, kneeling down to Sophie's eye level. "Are you ready to be my daughter officially?" Sophie throws her arms around Victoria's neck, hugging her with the fierce affection that has become as natural as breathing. "I've been ready since you taught me to tie my shoes properly." Mrs. Chen appears in the doorway dressed in her finest dress and beaming with pride. "Time to go," she announces. "Your groom is getting antsy, and the guests are starting to wonder if something's wrong." Victoria takes Sophie's hand, and together they walk downstairs toward the ceremony that will make official what has been true in their hearts for months. The ceremony takes place in the same section of Grant Park, where Victoria first joined Nathan and Sophie for Family Day 4 months ago. 40 guests sit in white chairs facing a simple arch decorated with white flowers and purple ribbon. CyberShield employees mix with Nathan's neighbors from the apartment building, Sophie's classmates from school, and the small circle of friends who have supported them through this unconventional courtship. Nathan stands beneath the arch wearing a simple black suit, his hands clasped in front of him, his expression radiating calm joy. Beside him, James Patterson, An old friend from MIT who agreed to officiate holds the simple ceremony they've planned. As Victoria walks down the grass aisle with Sophie skipping beside her, she sees faces she recognizes. Dr. Martinez, Sophie's pediatrician, who has become like family through years of managing asthma care. Mrs. Chen, who has been grandmother and support system and emergency contact rolled into one. Rebecca, who has watched Victoria transform from demanding boss to woman capable of deep love. But Victoria's attention remains focused on Nathan, whose smile grows brighter with each step that brings her closer. When she reaches the arch, Sophie takes her assigned place as maid of honor, holding Victoria's small bouquet with great seriousness. "Friends," James begins his voice, carrying across the gathered crowd. "We're here today to celebrate something beautiful and rare. The joining of two people who found love in unexpected places and the official formation of a family that was built on choice rather than circumstance." Victoria and Nathan have written their own vows, and Nathan speaks first, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "Victoria, 6 months ago, I thought I knew what my life looked like. Work and Sophie and the small, safe world we'd built together. I never imagined someone could walk into that world and make it bigger, brighter, more complete than I ever knew it could be." His voice grows thick with emotion. "You've shown Sophie what it means to be chosen, not just born into a family, but selected for love. You've given her the mother she always deserved and never thought she'd have. And you've given me a partner who understands that love isn't just romance. It's showing up at 3 a.m. when someone you care about can't breathe." Victoria feels tears streaming down her face as Nathan continues. "I promise to love you through every board meeting and every breathing treatment, through every professional triumph and every scared phone call from school. I promise to build a life with you that honors both the work you love and the family we're creating. And I promise that our family will always be our priority, no matter what success or challenges come our way." Victoria takes a deep breath, looking at Nathan and then at Sophie, who is watching the proceedings with rapt attention. "Nathan, when I met you, I thought I had everything I wanted. Professional success, financial security, complete independence. I was proud of needing no one, of being self-sufficient and invulnerable." Her voice wavers with emotion. "You showed me that the strongest people aren't the ones who need no one. They're the ones who love someone enough to be vulnerable to sacrifice, to choose connection over control." Victoria turns slightly to address Sophie directly. "Sophie, I promise to love you, not just when you're happy and healthy, but when you're scared and sick and having trouble breathing. I promise to show up for every school play and every doctor's appointment and every 3 a.m. emergency. I promise to be the mother you deserve, not because I gave birth to you, but because I choose you every single day." Looking back at Nathan, Victoria continues, "I promise to be your partner in building a life that's measured not by professional achievements, but by how safe and loved our daughter feels. I promise to choose our family over everything else because you've taught me that this is what success really looks like." James asks for the rings, and Sophie steps forward with great ceremony to present them. As Nathan slides the simple gold band onto Victoria's finger, she feels the weight of commitment, of belonging, of promises that will reshape every priority in her life. "By the power vested in me," James announces with a broad smile, "I now pronounce you husband and wife and officially a family of 3. Nathan, you may kiss your bride." Nathan cups Victoria's face gently and kisses her as their guests applaud, and Sophie jumps up and down, clapping her hands. When they break apart, Sophie throws herself at both of them, wrapping her arms around their legs in the kind of group hug that squeezes hearts as well as bodies. "We're really a family now," Sophie announces loudly enough for everyone to hear. "Like officially and everything." The reception takes place right there in the park with simple food and music from a small speaker, and the kind of relaxed celebration that focuses on joy rather than performance. Victoria dances with Sophie to a Disney song, both of them laughing as they make up moves. Nathan dances with Mrs. Chen, who whispers something in his ear that makes him grin broadly. As the sun begins to set over Grant Park, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Victoria finds herself standing with Nathan at the edge of the celebration, watching Sophie play with her friends from school. "Perfect timing," Nathan says softly, wrapping his arm around Victoria's waist. Victoria leans against him, feeling completely peaceful for the first time in her adult life. "You know what I realized during the ceremony?" "What's that?" "I've spent 15 years building an empire, pursuing success, accumulating achievements. But standing there making promises to you and Sophie, I realized that none of that was actually living. It was just elaborate ways of hiding from life." Nathan kisses her temple gently. "And now I know the difference. Success isn't about what you accomplish. It's about who you love and who loves you back. It's about creating something together that's bigger than anything you could build alone." They watch Sophie run toward them, her flower crown slightly askew. Her purple dress grass-stained her face, glowing with happiness. "Are we going home now?" Sophie asks, slipping her hands into both of theirs. To our house, Victoria looks at Nathan, then at Sophie, then at the family and friends surrounding them, with love and celebration. "Yes," she says softly, "we're going home. To our house, to our family, to our life together." And for the first time in 38 years, Victoria Hayes knows exactly where she belongs. 3 years later, the Brooks family home buzzes with the comfortable chaos of a Thursday evening. Sophie, now 11, and navigating the complex social waters of 6th grade, sits at the kitchen table working on a geography project, while 2-year-old James toddles around the living room, his dark hair exactly matching Nathan's and his determined expression pure Victoria. The house itself reflects the growth of their family. They'd moved 18 months ago to a larger place with a proper yard where James could play safely and Sophie could have friends over without everyone feeling cramped. Victoria's home office occupies what used to be a formal dining room, allowing her to work from home 3 days a week and be present for homework time and dinner preparation. "Sophie, can you help James with his blocks?" While I finish dinner, Victoria calls from the kitchen where she's attempting Nathan's grilled cheese technique with modest success. "Mom!" "He just knocks them down anyway," Sophie responds, but she obediently moves to the living room to supervise her little brother. The word "mom" still sends a thrill through Victoria's heart every time she hears it. The adoption had been finalized 2 years ago, a legal proceeding that was far less dramatic than the emotional reality of becoming Sophie's mother. By the time the papers were signed, Victoria had already been handling asthma emergencies and parent-teacher conferences and bedtime stories for so long that the legal recognition felt like a formality. James had arrived a year later, much to Sophie's delight and slight concern about whether she'd still be the favorite child. Victoria's pregnancy had been unexpected, but welcome a gift that completed their family in ways none of them had anticipated. Watching Victoria manage both career and motherhood with the same strategic thinking she'd once applied to hostile takeovers, Nathan often marveled at her transformation. She'd learned to delegate more at CyberShield, promoting from within and building the kind of leadership team that could handle day-to-day operations without requiring her constant presence. The company had thrived under this new approach, with family-friendly policies that Victoria had personally championed, including extended parental leave and on-site childcare. CyberShield had become known as one of the best places to work in the tech industry. Productivity had increased along with employee satisfaction, proving Victoria's theory that people do their best work when they're not constantly worried about the people who depend on them. Mom Sophie calls from the living room. "Why do some kids at school say you're not my real mom?" Victoria pauses in her cheese-flipping. familiar protective anger flaring in her chest. "What did you tell them?" "I asked them what makes someone a real mom," Sophie replies matter-of-factly. "They said giving birth to you. So I asked them if that meant adoptive parents and stepmoms and grandmas who raise kids aren't real family. They didn't have a good answer for that." Victoria smiles, pride swelling in her chest. Sophie has inherited her logical mind, along with Nathan's gentle heart, a combination that serves her well in navigating social complications. "What do you think makes someone a real mom?" Victoria asks, joining Sophie on the living room floor, where James is indeed knocking down carefully constructed block towers. Sophie considers this seriously, her 11-year-old face scrunched in concentration. "Taking care of you when you're sick, helping with homework even when it's boring, reading bedtime stories, knowing your favorite foods and your least favorite foods and what makes you scared and what makes you happy, loving you even when you're being annoying." She looks up at Victoria with clear, confident eyes. "You do all those things every day. You picked me, which is way more special than just getting stuck with kids because you're already related to them." Victoria pulls Sophie into a hug, breathing in the scent of her daughter's hair, still amazed by the fierce protectiveness that motherhood has awakened in her. The next morning, Victoria drives Sophie to school, a ritual they both treasure. These 15 minutes in the car have become their private time for discussing everything from friendship drama to questions about growing up to Sophie's increasingly sophisticated observations about fairness and justice. This morning's topic is careers. "Mom, do you ever miss when work was the most important thing in your life?" Victoria considers this question carefully. Sophie deserves honest answers, not platitudes about everything being perfect. "Sometimes I miss the simplicity of it," Victoria admits. "When success was measured in clear numbers, and I didn't have to worry about anyone but myself. But I don't miss the loneliness. I don't miss the emptiness of achievements that nobody I loved got to share." She glances at Sophie in the rearview mirror. "Work is still important to me, but it's not the only important thing anymore. The best part of any successful day is coming home to tell you and Daddy and James about it. What if I want a career like yours someday?" Sophie asks. "Something big and demanding." "Then I'll support you completely," Victoria says. "But I'll also make sure you understand that you can have both. A meaningful career and a loving family. The key is building a life where all the important things fit together, instead of competing with each other." Sophie nods seriously, then shifts to her second favorite topic. "Can we get ice cream after my doctor appointment today?" Victoria laughs. Sophie's asthma checkups have become routine rather than stressful, thanks to better medications and Sophie's growing maturity in managing her condition. "We'll see what Dr. Martinez says about your lung function. If it's good news, ice cream. If it's not so good news, we'll get ice cream anyway because medical appointments are hard work. That's why you're the best mum," Sophie declares with satisfaction. Arriving at Cyber Shield that afternoon, Victoria finds her assistant Rebecca reviewing the quarterly board presentation with characteristic efficiency. The numbers are strong, employee retention is at an all-time high, and the Pentagon contract has led to 3 additional government partnerships that have positioned the company for international expansion. "Rebecca, I want you to add something to next week's presentation," Victoria says, settling behind her desk. "A new initiative I've been developing." Rebecca looks up expectantly, pen poised over her notepad. "The Cyber Shield Opportunity Scholarship Program. Full-ride coding boot camp for adults transitioning into tech careers. Single parents, people. Returning to work after extended absence, anyone who has talent but lacks traditional credentials or resources." Rebecca's eyebrows rise. "How many scholarships? Initially 50 per year. We'll partner with community colleges and workforce development programs to identify candidates. The goal is to find people like Nathan who have skills but need opportunity." Victoria leans forward, her expression passionate. I want to fund this personally, not through the company budget. Consider it my way of paying forward what someone did for me." "What someone did for you?" Rebecca asks, confused. "Nathan showed me that wisdom and talent don't always come with impressive resumes. Some of the most valuable people in any organization are the ones we overlook because we're too busy being impressed by credentials to notice competence." Victoria smiles, thinking of her husband working patiently with James's block towers while Sophie practices piano in the next room. "I've learned that the best leaders aren't the ones who hoard power and recognition. They're the ones who create opportunities for others to succeed." The scholarship program launches 3 months later to applications that exceed Victoria's wildest projections. Hundreds of people submit stories about career changes necessitated by family responsibilities, about hidden talents developed through necessity, rather than formal education about dreams deferred but not abandoned. Reading through the applications with Nathan and Sophie's help, Victoria is struck by the variety of backgrounds and experiences. Construction workers who learned coding through online tutorials, restaurant servers who designed websites for friends, stay-at-home parents who managed complex projects that never appeared on any resume. She selects 50 recipients based not just on technical aptitude tests, but on essays about resilience, creativity, and determination. The first class includes a former military medic learning cybersecurity, a retired teacher developing educational software, and a single mother who taught herself programming while working 3 jobs to support her children. The graduation ceremony takes place at CyberShield headquarters 6 months later. Watching these 50 people walk across the stage to receive certificates that will change their career trajectories, Victoria feels a satisfaction deeper than any business achievement she's ever accomplished. Several graduates have already been hired by CyberShield itself. Others have found positions at partner companies or started consulting businesses. All of them represent Victoria's belief that opportunity should be based on potential rather than pedigree. During the reception following graduation, a woman approaches Victoria with tears in her eyes. "Ms. Hayes, I'm Maria Santos. I was a restaurant manager before your program. Now I'm a software developer at Taurus Analytics, and my daughter says she wants to be a programmer too because she saw her mom could do it." Victoria hugs Maria impulsively, thinking of Sophie watching from the audience, seeing her mother create pathways for other people's dreams. "Thank you for seeing potential where other people saw only limitations." Maria continues, "This program didn't just change my career, it changed my whole family's future." Walking home that evening with Nathan Sophie and James Victoria reflects on how different her definition of success has become. 3 years ago, she measured achievement in stock prices and market share and industry recognition. Tonight, she measures it in Maria's tears of gratitude, in Sophie's proud face during the ceremony, in James's sleepy weight against Nathan's shoulder. "You know what I realized today," Victoria says, slipping her hand into Nathan's free one as they walk through their neighborhood. "What's that?" "Trevor was wrong about everything, but especially about the company falling apart without him. CyberShield is stronger now than it's ever been, not because I'm working longer hours or controlling every decision, but because I learned to trust other people and invest in their success." Nathan smiles, shifting James to his other arm. "What would you tell your younger self if you could go back to that night in the server room?" Victoria considers this question seriously. That the person who saves your company might not be who you expect. That wisdom doesn't always come with impressive titles. And that the best things in life happen when you stop trying to control everything and start trusting the right people. She looks at her family. Her husband who sacrificed a brilliant career for love. Her daughter who faces medical challenges with courage and grace. Her son who will grow up understanding that strength comes from caring for others. Most importantly, Victoria says, I'd tell her that success isn't about building an empire. It's about becoming the kind of person that people you love can depend on. It's about creating something bigger than yourself, that will matter long after you're gone. As they reach their front porch, Sophie turns to Victoria with the serious expression she gets when processing important thoughts. "Mum, do you think you'll keep doing the scholarship program even when you're old and retired?" Victoria laughs, unlocking the front door as Nathan carries sleepy James inside. "Sweetheart, I'll keep doing it as long as there are people who need opportunities and I have the resources to provide them. Because that's what families do for each other," Sophie says with satisfaction. "And since all those scholarship people are like your work family now, you have to take care of them too." Victoria pauses in the hallway, struck by her daughter's wisdom. Sophie has understood something that took Victoria decades to learn. That family isn't just biology or legal adoption or marriage certificates. It's choice commitment and showing up for people who matter. "You're absolutely right," Victoria says, kissing Sophie's forehead. Family takes care of family in all the ways that count. Later that night, after James is asleep in his crib and Sophie is settled with her book, Victoria and Nathan sit on their back porch watching stars appear in the darkening sky. "Do you ever think about that night in the server room?" Victoria asks, her head resting on Nathan's shoulder. "All the time," Nathan admits. "I think about how close I came to walking away, to not getting involved, to letting the experts figure it out. What changed your mind?" "You did. When I watched you handle that crisis, watched you put the jobs of 3,000 people ahead of your own pride, I realized you weren't the person I thought you were. You were someone worth helping." Nathan pauses, stroking Victoria's hair gently. "And Sophie would never have forgiven me if I let her future mum's company get destroyed by someone else's sabotage." Victoria laughs softly. "She knew about us before we did, didn't she? She told me weeks before I asked you to marry me that you were obviously perfect for our family. Said grown-ups were really slow about figuring out important stuff. They sit in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of their neighborhood settling into evening." Victoria thinks about the journey that brought them here, from that crisis-filled night to this peaceful moment of belonging. Nathan, Victoria says quietly, "What you said about family not being biology, but choice, I want you to know that I choose you and Sophie and James every single day. Not because I have to, but because loving you is the best thing I've ever done with my life." "I choose you too," Nathan replies, kissing the top of her head. "Every morning when I wake up next to you, every evening when we're all together for dinner. Every time Sophie calls you Mum or James reaches for you when he's scared. This family we built, it's the greatest accomplishment any of us will ever have." Victoria closes her eyes, feeling completely at peace. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, board meetings and budget reviews, and the endless demands of running a major corporation. But tonight, she's exactly where she belongs. With her husband who taught her that sacrifice is another word for love. With her children who showed her that the most important victories happen not in boardrooms, but in small moments of trust and connection. With a family she chose, and a family that chose her back. In her penthouse apartment 12 floors above the city, Victoria Hayes had been successful. Powerful and utterly alone. Here on this back porch, surrounded by the people who matter most. Victoria Brooks has discovered what true wealth actually means. It means having someone to celebrate with when good things happen and someone to hold you when they don't. It means being trusted with other people's dreams and fears and breathing emergencies. It means measuring your day not by what you accomplished for yourself, but by whether the people you love feel safe and valued and supported. It means going to sleep every night knowing that you belong completely to people who belong completely to you. As the stars grow brighter overhead, Victoria realizes that her greatest success will never appear on any corporate balance sheet. It lives in Sophie's confident laughter, in Nathan's peaceful smile, in James's sleepy trust in the scholarship recipients building better futures in the family they've created together from broken pieces and second chances. She used to think that needing no one made her strong. Now she knows that being needed by the right people is what makes life worth living. 5 years after that night in the server room, Victoria and Nathan Brooks walk through Cyber Shield headquarters, hand in hand, their children trailing behind them like the future personified. Today is Bring Your Family to Work Day. And Sophie, now 13, and fascinated by the intersection of technology and social justice, wants to see the server room where her parents' love story began. The 19th floor looks different now, brighter, more welcoming, with family photos scattered among the technical equipment and a small play area in the corner for employees' children. The changes reflect Victoria's transformation from CEO, who viewed employees as expendable resources, to leader who understands that people do their best work when they feel valued as complete human beings. Nathan explains basic network security concepts to Sophie, while 2-year-old James points at blinking lights and shouts, "Pretty!" with infectious enthusiasm. Victoria watches her family together, still amazed by the ordinary miracle of belonging to people who know all your flaws and love you anyway. This is where it all started, Sophie says, studying the servers with the same intense focus she applies to everything that interests her. Where Mom learned that assumptions about people based on their job titles are usually wrong. Dr. Mitchell, now Chief Security Officer, joins them with a warm smile. She was part of that legendary night, one of the 12 experts who watched Nathan solve what they couldn't touch. "Your father saved not just your mother's company, but all our jobs," Dr. Mitchell tells Sophie. "He reminded us that brilliance doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes the most capable person in the room is the one everyone overlooks." The afternoon's main event is a presentation about the Cyber Shield Opportunity Scholarship Program. Victoria and Nathan stand together on the small auditorium stage, looking out at an audience that includes company employees, scholarship graduates, and families. 5 years ago, Victoria begins. "I nearly lost this company because I made assumptions about people based on their titles instead of their capabilities. I dismissed someone as unqualified when he was actually more skilled than any expert I'd hired." She gestures to Nathan, who stands quietly beside her. "That taught me something crucial about leadership. The strongest organizations aren't built by the people who demand attention. They're built by the people who show up every day, solve problems without fanfare, and care more about outcomes than recognition." Victoria describes the scholarship program's growth from 50 annual recipients to over 200, with graduates now working at companies across the country. More than that, she explains how the program has changed Cyber Shield's hiring practices, leading them to recognize talent in unexpected places and build a workforce that reflects the diversity of people who use their technology. Nathan steps forward to share his perspective. 7 years ago, I walked away from what everyone considered a brilliant career to become a single father. People thought I was throwing my life away, but I was actually saving it. Sophie taught me that love is the only success that matters in the end." He looks out at the audience, his voice carrying the quiet authority of someone who has learned life's most important lessons through experience rather than theory. This scholarship program works because it's based on understanding that everyone has a story. Everyone has skills developed through necessity, creativity, born from constraints, intelligence that doesn't fit traditional molds. A hand raises in the audience. Maria Santos, the former restaurant manager who now leads a development team, stands to speak. 5 years ago, I was working 3 jobs to support my children, teaching myself programming during whatever spare time I could find. This program didn't just give me technical training, it gave me permission to believe that my background as a single mother was an asset, not a liability. She looks directly at Victoria and Nathan. My daughter Anna is now 15 and wants to study computer science. She's not intimidated by technology because she watched her mother succeed in it. That's generational change that started with someone believing I had potential worth developing. The applause is warm and sustained, but Victoria's attention is caught by Sophie, who raises her hand with a question. Mum. Dad, I want to understand something about the night you met. She stands speaking with the confidence of someone raised to believe her thoughts matter. You said assumptions about job titles are dangerous, but isn't it also true that you had to be ready to see who Dad really was? Like maybe the timing mattered as much as anything else? The audience quiets, sensing the depth of the question. Victoria and Nathan exchange glances, both impressed by their daughter's insight. You're absolutely right, Sophie, Victoria says. I wasn't wrong about your father that night. I just wasn't ready to see who he really was until my world fell apart enough to make me question everything I thought I knew about success and worthiness and what actually matters. Nathan nods in agreement. Sometimes we have to become the people who can recognize what's been in front of us all along. Your mother had to learn that strength doesn't mean never needing help before she could see that I was someone worth trusting with her vulnerabilities. Sophie smiles with the satisfaction of someone whose thinking has been validated. So it was really about timing. You found each other exactly when you were ready to find each other. The presentation concludes with success stories from scholarship graduates and announcements about program expansion to other cities. But as the family walks home together, Victoria finds herself thinking about Sophie's observation about timing and readiness. You know what our daughter figured out, Victoria says to Nathan as they watch Sophie and James play in their front yard. That meeting you wasn't about luck or coincidence. It was about me becoming someone who could be your wife and Sophie's mother before I could recognize the person who could be my husband. Nathan wraps his arm around her waist. Do you think you would have been ready to fall in love with a maintenance worker if Trevor hadn't forced you to question everything you believed about worth and capability? Victoria considers this seriously. Probably not. I was too invested in the idea that impressive credentials equaled impressive people. I needed to be humbled before I could learn to see clearly. She leans against Nathan, watching their children laugh together in the golden afternoon light. But I'm grateful for the timing. I'm grateful that I didn't meet you when I was 25 and too proud to recognize what you were offering. I got to be this version of myself when I found you the version who was ready for real love instead of just successful dating. That evening during their family dinner routine that has remained constant through all their changes, Sophie brings up her favorite topic, fairness and justice in daily life. I've been thinking about something all day, she announces between bites of Nathan's improved but still imperfect cooking. Why do people assume that if someone is working as a janitor or maintenance person, that's all they're capable of? Why don't we assume they might be choosing that job for reasons we don't understand? Victoria and Nathan exchange proud glances. Sophie's social justice instincts are developing right on schedule. What do you think? Nathan asks. Why do people make those assumptions? Sophie considers this with her characteristic seriousness. I think people are scared that if someone who seems ordinary could actually be extraordinary, then maybe they're not as special as they thought. Like if the maintenance worker could be smarter than the CEO, then what does that say about the CEO? She pauses, then adds with devastating clarity. Maybe it's easier to believe that people are exactly what they appear to be than to question whether you're actually seeing them clearly. Victoria feels a familiar surge of pride and love for this wise, thoughtful child who challenges her thinking every day. Sophie, that's exactly right. It's much easier to put people in categories than to treat each person as an individual with their own story and capabilities. What's your job as someone who knows better? Nathan asks Sophie. Sophie's answer is immediate and confident. To see people the way you and Mom learned to see each other. To assume everyone has more to offer than what's obvious on the surface, and to create chances for people to show who they really are. After dinner, as Nathan helps James with his bath and Sophie works on homework, Victoria sits in her home office reviewing applications for the latest scholarship class. Each application tells a story of resilience of hidden talents, of dreams that have been deferred but not abandoned. She pauses at one application from a woman who has been out of the workforce for 8 years while caring for a parent with Alzheimer's disease. The essay describes learning database management to track medical appointments and developing budgeting spreadsheets to manage complex insurance requirements. Skills developed through necessity intelligence applied to love rather than profit. Victoria makes a note to include this application in the interview round, thinking about how easily such capabilities could be overlooked by traditional hiring processes. How many brilliant people are managing family crises or working in survival jobs while their talents go unrecognized? Nathan appears in her doorway with James in dinosaur pajamas ready for bedtime stories. Another good group of applications, Nathan asks, settling into the chair across from Victoria's desk, while James climbs onto his lap. The best yet, Victoria says. Reading these stories, I keep thinking about how much talent we waste by making assumptions about people's circumstances rather than recognizing their capabilities. She shows Nathan the application she's been reviewing. This woman has essentially been running a small business for 8 years, managing complex schedules and budgets and medical decisions. But because she's been a family caregiver, traditional employers would probably see her as someone with an employment gap rather than someone with highly developed skills. Nathan reads over the essay with growing admiration. She's probably more qualified than half our current management team. Her organizational skills alone are impressive. James points at the computer screen and announces, "Smart lady!" Victoria laughs, lifting James into her own arms. "Yes, sweetheart. Very smart lady. We're going to help her learn some new skills so she can have an even better job." As Nathan carries sleepy James upstairs and Victoria finishes her application review, she reflects on how much her understanding of intelligence and capability has evolved. 5 years ago, she would have dismissed the caregiver's application without reading it, focusing instead on candidates with prestigious degrees and linear career paths. Now she knows that some of the most valuable skills in any organization come from people who have learned to solve complex problems with limited resources, who have developed patience and creativity through necessity, who understand that real leadership often happens quietly and without recognition. Sophie appears in the office doorway, ready for her own bedtime routine. "Mum, can I ask you something kind of personal?" "Of course, sweetheart." Victoria saves her work and gives Sophie her complete attention. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you and Dad had met when you were younger? Like if you'd dated in college or something?" Victoria considers this thoughtfully. "I think we would have been wrong for each other. I was too ambitious and impatient to appreciate someone who prioritized family over career advancement. And your father probably wouldn't have been ready to trust someone who seemed as driven and demanding as I was. So you think everything had to happen exactly the way it did? I think we had to become the people who could love each other properly before we could find each other." Victoria says, "Sometimes the best things in life require preparation we don't even realize we're doing." Sophie nods thoughtfully, like how I had to learn to manage my asthma really well before I could feel confident about having sleepovers with friends. I had to be ready for the independence before I could enjoy it. Exactly like that. Victoria pulls Sophie into a hug. "You've learned one of life's most important lessons early. Timing matters as much as wanting something. Being ready matters as much as being willing." As Victoria tucks Sophie into bed and reads the nightly chapter from whatever book they're sharing, she thinks about the wisdom of timing, about preparation that happens invisibly, until suddenly you're ready for what you couldn't handle before. She couldn't have been Nathan's wife when she was 25 and believed that needing someone was weakness. She couldn't have been Sophie's mother when she measured success only by professional achievement. She needed to learn vulnerability to understand sacrifice, to discover that the strongest people are the ones who love someone else more than they love their own comfort. The journey to readiness had taken 15 years of building an empire that felt hollow, of achieving everything she thought she wanted. only to realize it wasn't enough. Without that preparation, she never would have recognized Nathan's value or been capable of the kind of love that reorganizes every priority in your life. Walking downstairs to find Nathan reading in the living room, Victoria feels overwhelmed with gratitude for timing that felt painful, but turned out to be perfect. "Our daughter is going to be unstoppable," Victoria says, settling beside Nathan on the couch. The way she thinks about justice and timing, and recognizing people's true value. She's taking the best parts of both of us and building something even better. Nathan closes his book and pulls Victoria against his side. She's had good examples. Parents who learned to see past surface appearances, who chose love over convenience, who built something together that's stronger than what either of us could have accomplished alone. They sit together in comfortable silence, surrounded by the evidence of their life together. Sophie's artwork on the walls, James's toys scattered on the floor, family photos that tell the story of their unconventional beginning and their thoroughly conventional happiness. "You know what I love most about our story," Victoria says. "It proves that everyone deserves to be seen for who they really are, not just what they appear to be. Your brilliance hiding behind a maintenance uniform, my loneliness hiding behind corporate success. Sophie's wisdom growing stronger every day despite her medical challenges." Nathan kisses her forehead gently. "And it proves that the best families are the ones people choose, not just the ones they're born into. We all picked each other deliberately and completely." As they head upstairs together, turning off lights and checking on sleeping children, Victoria thinks about the scholarship recipients who will graduate next month, about the families that will be changed by opportunities to show their hidden capabilities, about the ripple effects of believing in people's potential rather than accepting their limitations. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, board meetings and budget decisions, and the endless complexity of running a major corporation while raising 2 children and maintaining a marriage built on mutual respect and shared values. But tonight, Victoria Brooks falls asleep next to the man who saved her company and her heart in a house filled with laughter and love, and the kind of ordinary miracles that happen when people choose to see each other clearly. She dreams of server rooms and scholarship ceremonies, of first meetings and last chances, of the precise timing that brings the right people together exactly when they're ready to build something beautiful from their individual broken pieces. And she wakes up grateful every single morning for the night when everything fell apart just enough to let the light in. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, if it reminded you that everyone deserves respect regardless of their job title, that love can grow in the most unexpected places, and that the most valuable things in life can't be measured in dollars, please don't let it end here. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that remind us what really matters. Share this with someone who needs to remember that kindness and second chances can change everything. What's one time someone surprised you by being more than you expected? Tell us in the comments below. Until next time, remember that everyone has a story worth knowing, and everyone deserves to be seen for who they really are.